He's too young. Larry and I remember those days. Let's call the meeting to order if we could. Welcome everybody. I'm sorry we're a little late. We're having apparently some technical difficulties, but let's go on and start plowing through the agenda. We have a lot of things to talk about. There's a lot of paper in front of us, so I guess we have a lot to talk about here. First thing I want to do is there's a motion to approve the minutes of the regularly held meeting of our meeting last April 4th, 2018. There's been a typo pointed out to me by Brother Lawrence that his name was misspelled, so we'll make that correction for the record. Both names are misspelled. We apologize, Sir Lawrence. Anything else for modifications or edits on the amendments?
Under property improvement grants, I'd like to probably break it on awnings.
Awnings? Thank you. We'll get spell check.
I'm just making sure you read it.
Yeah, this is all a test to make sure you read the minutes. So far, you're doing well.
We've got 3 of 6 of the.
Anybody else have any more typographical errors? Yes.
I think we have the wrong date at the top.
Yeah, the wrong date at the top too.
Who typed these things? Nobody's looking at anybody. Everybody's head's, it wasn't me. Everybody's got their head there. We have the wrong date, apparently.
I mean, it should be April.
Should be 4/4/18 instead of March 7th.
Got it. Anything else we'd like to address? I'm afraid to ask. Yeah, let's hope the financials don't look as bad as the minutes. Okay. With those additions and amendments, I guess we'll have a motion to approve the minutes. So moved by Larry, a second. Second by Double Lawrence. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Steve, the financials?
Yes. If you'll look, this goes to April. The current balance is $409,113. Just one little note to mention down on the line items here. You'll see that block by block, it looks like 2 payments went in March. It was just that the April payment was sent out the last day of the month, and we got to learn to be late on the payments, not early, to carry the float a little bit. But other than that, there's nothing that looks out of order, and it looks in pretty good shape. And our best customer is that sheriff guy, but he's kind of getting a little slack here in the last couple of months.
That's true. That's true.
Anyway, that's it.
Any questions on the financials, anybody? Most of our money's been collected by virtue of the tax bill, so we're pretty much done for the year, but Sheriff Witt does a good job. She has a great success rate on collections. So I guess we need a motion to approve the financials. Motion by Tanya, second by Woodford. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Okay. Terry, you got this agenda thing, public forum presentation, which I'm not really crazy about. Anybody want to talk about anything? We'll do it again at the end if you want to. Anybody want to bring up anything before we get into the agenda? Okay. Terry, why don't you take it over?
So, I have a couple of exciting things to chat about today. First off, is the 3-year plan update. So, as you guys remember, we held a joint board retreat with the goal of eventually developing a 3-year strategic plan and a 1-year work plan. That was held on March 21st. That was in the morning. Our 2 boards, the DLMD board and the Downtown Lexington Partnership Board, got together for a board retreat. And then the Downtown Lexington Partnership Advisory Board came in at lunch on that same day, went through the same process. And then later that evening, we had an open house where we invited the public and our collaborating organizations and city leaders to come in, do the same thing, take a look at the work we had done and weigh in on things and write stuff up on the boards, rank things. And then we looked around and said, hey, we probably need to do some more engagement. We thought that there were some geographies and some people missing from this process. So we hosted, along with Councilor James Brown and Joe Smith, a open house in District 1 and 2. And that was held April, let's see, sometime April 16th. And then, so we got some feedback from those stakeholders. And then we held one more on April 24th, where we invited the rest of the advisory board that couldn't make it on March 21st to come in the morning. And then we had the distillery district come in for lunch along with the commercial real estate group. and then another open house through our meet and greet. So through that process, we've had nearly 400 people take a look at what we're proposing as a plan, give us their feedback, and help us guide what we're going to be doing hopefully over the next 3 years. So what we've done to date then is we've taken that, just all the raw comments and input that we've gotten, put it into a Word document, and then remember people were able to kind of prioritize by putting a dot up. So we also then quantified how many people agreed with something. And so we have that now, the raw document. You have it in your packet. But we have that up on our website. And actually, what you have in your packet is, yeah, it's the entire everything, what we're proposing. What I thought I'd do today, and so this is just up on the website now, on our website, and I'll work with Kyle. We can probably put it up also on your website, so it's there if people have an interest of knowing kind of, here's the raw stuff. We're now going to take that and begin to craft it into a 3-year plan and 3-year budget projection, of which it'll come back before you in June. And the goal is that, again, this whole process is what I call, we create a common mission, a shared vision, and one point of execution, and that would be the DLP, of which you're a partner and a funder of funding the mission and the programs and services. So what I have up here is, I thought it would be interesting just to, you see these yellow highlights that are in some sections. Those are what I thought were interesting, that either were different or that there was enough people saying the same thing that we should make sure to bring those forward. And so I thought I'd kind of just go over those. So under state of the organization, weakness, branding, and visibility of DLP, and I would say also DLMD. So some of these things I think we have to put as both. Opportunities, town branch, and then connections to all of downtown. I think that's, when we talk about the mission area of at least the umbrella organization DLP, people go, oh really, that's the geography. It's more about people would understand it better if it was better connected. So we have to work on, I think, developing connections. So momentum is energy and development, downtown living, and again, these are what people are saying. Oh, also, I'll go back, is you see the different color print, they're colored according to the day. So we've had 3 different days. So red is the first day, March 21st. Green or blue is the second day with District 1 and 2. And then green is that last day on April 24th. Let's see, so greatest challenges, performing arts, location, and places to perform. That, you'll see that come up a number of different times. One-way streets, people are challenged by the street grid. Lighting, we hear that constantly, so that came up really strongly. Pedestrian friendliness, in some ways that goes back to the one-way streets. Panhandling, we hear a lot about that. Sustainable development. Here's something that we see consistently, and not a lot of people were real excited about, but delivery trucks off, they're kind of, the way I'm putting it is, we got to do something about this. We have delivery trucks on sidewalks all the time. You can't walk on a sidewalk. And if you're ADA, physically challenged, it's a real problem. You got to go into the street, or you got to wait for someone to come back. I have probably 15 pictures since I've been here, which isn't very long, of people just parked on a sidewalk and completely blocking it, nowhere to go. So it came up a number of times. Not a lot of people voting on it, but I think it's something that we have to address. And I'll just go into a second. So how do we address that? We have to have a strategic right-of-way use plan and figure out where we need loading zones so that people can do business, or loading zone hours or something. But this stuff, I've never seen a Federal Express truck on a sidewalk ever in any other city. Constantly I see that, UPS trucks. It's just weird. Parking. Should I put another parking next to this because it came up in Boise?
It's not highlighted. Leave it that way.
Not free either.
20 minutes.
Yeah,
Yep.
here's another delivery truck off Main Streets. Utility lines came up in a number of different places. I think we hear that a lot. Parking.
It's highlighted.
Okay.
Sure of that.
Assessment of downtown. So here's something that I think as we go through the branding process, one of the things that we'll begin to highlight is celebrate Forest Bourbon festivals. You know, what is it, the identity of downtown or Lexington that we got to really lean into? Grocery stores. Again, this is what's missing. Affordable residential. I think that's also very important. Playground. You know, as we talk about family and trying to make this everyone's neighborhood and for everyone's life cycles, and as I say, life cycles and physical abilities, that becomes really important. Large scale art projects. I think we might be talking about something like that later today. So that resonates really strongly. Grocery store again. Architectural lighting, pedestrian lighting for areas. Trolley. So we saw a number of transit things about how do we link the different districts. Art museum again, performance hall, shuttles, trolley, and then town branch is what's missing on Manchester. What needs to be fixed? Triangle Park programming rose up, so we're working on that. Trash cans, I know the city's working on that as well. Two-way streets again came up, and buried power lines and communication lines. And then people were interested in an incubator space, more of those spaces, and those are some things that we think are important as well. So that is, okay, so then the next thing is, you remember if you remember the process, we put stuff up, these are kind of at the end, what did we miss? So is there something that we didn't cover that you think is important? Again, performing arts venue, drugstore, grocery store, performing arts center again came up real strong. Strategic thought, event schedule, connect the distillery district and North Line, urban canopy, tree canopy that is, art museum, want us to improve parades, and east side. Okay, then I thought this was really an exciting thing is, we asked, how can we partner together and what organization are you? And so we came up with some things. So after meet events and festivals, and that was Keeneland. Lex Singers came through on a number of different things. Interested. Historic preservation, again, performing arts, art museum, residents association, and that's on our radar. And I think that's it. So those are kind of just from all the other things that are contained in the plan. These are just organically, people throw these things out that we think, oh wow, we got to take that and bring it forward because those align pretty well with what we have been thinking about. And so that's kind of the plan process. So again, this is all on the website now. We will distill this down into an actual plan and bring that with budget projections for 3 years, bring that at the next board meeting. And then the DLP will also do the same thing. So both boards will have approved this. We will now march forward shoulder to shoulder and get about the business of what we say we're going to do. That means probably in July meeting, we will do the 1-year plan and budget. So that then we'll, because by that time we will know what the city's allocated towards this mission, and then we'll be able to develop the 1-year plan and 1-year work plan. It will emanate from the 3-year, so it won't come as a surprise, but it'll say, hey, this is what we're going to do this year. And there'll be a lot more specificity in a line-by-line budget item. And that budget will show, the 3-year budget will also, it'll show revenue and expenses, and then 2 columns of what DLP is paying for, and then another column what DLMD is paying for. So everyone will know, everyone under the sun will know what you're doing and why, and where your money's going to, right? And we'll stick to that and then drive forward and get results based upon the plan. All right, any questions on that process?
How do you take, excuse me, an initiative like burying utilities? You know, for example, if we buried all the utilities in the district, how much would that cost, you know, dollar-wise? And what programs, say, might KU have to do it over a multi-year period?
So,
And what groups might
Yeah.
donate to that?
yeah, so,
Just, I mean,
so we've started to put that in the plan. So the plan's not, we're not just starting it tomorrow. We've started to create the plan. And so how we would do that is we need an infrastructure plan for downtown. Who needs to be at the table to do that, and what do they need to cover? One of those things are utilities, but also what are the bond projects or capital projects we need for the future in order to be successful. So we need to identify those. Now, will we get those done? I don't know. That's a city council thing and a prioritization thing. But if we don't think about it and start putting it out there, we'll never get there, right? So we keep going, these utility lines, right? Does anyone put together okay, let's solve for X, as I say. How do we get people around the table? We might have to solve for X 10 years from now, but if we don't start thinking about it and planning for it, we never will. So we get those people around the table, and so our job will be, okay, we need to do this. Not that we have to be the doers, but we got to figure it out.
right.
Okay, anything else? So also, we will sit down in small groups, like of 2 or so folks, ahead of this and go through the plan with everyone and get your feedback before we come to you for approval. So you won't see it for the first time at the board meeting. You'll have a pretty good familiarity with it. And same thing with the 1-year plan, and that's probably the most important because it is exactly what we're going to do. So we'll do the same thing with the 1-year plan and budget. So you won't go, no wait, what's this line item? I don't understand this. You will know exactly what you're voting on before we get here. Okay. I'm going to see if I can get out of this and go to the next thing. All right. So I'm going to keep this up just so. So the next thing is we have. Hey, that worked really well. Okay. So the Downtown Lexington Management District, DLMD, and DLP partnered to do a couple things in preparation for the board retreat and this engagement process. We wanted to make sure that we understood the importance of downtown and its economic impact, but also what were some best practices. And so this is the final report, or let's say nearly final report. But you have it here, the full report before you. I'm going to do some highlights. This is the economic impact, and this is the best practices. For the best practices, I'm not going to go line by line. In the presentation, what I'm going to do is just show you what the recommendations are so that you know kind of what direction we're headed with this as a result of this. Okay. So economic impact. Again, joint project.
Just scroll.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. This is a summary page. Essentially, the takeaway, if you were to summarize this, is downtown's economic impact on Lexington far exceeds its size or consumption of land mass, which is important given that we have an urban service boundary and you have to maximize your density and your return on investment. So that's kind of what this says. And so as decision makers, the other thing is an investment in downtown gets leveraged much more greatly than in other parts. And that we should continue to try to figure out how we maximize density to improve that return on investment. Yeah, that'd be easy. So, for the purposes of this study, again, the study area is essentially the Downtown Development Authority's, that organization's mission area. And that's Loudon, kind of the north. Town Pike, Manchester, Red Mile, Virginia, Woodland, Ashland, and Walton, generally speaking. And that represents 2,522 acres. That is 1.4% of the land mass of Fayette County. The DLMD is 174 acres, and that's shown in red. So we cover 1.4% of the land mass. And we have a couple key indicators that show that per acre, so this is per acre, that for economic output, that we average, or we have a $1.4 million economic output per acre. If you take the rest of the county, it's 190,000. So big difference. We're maximizing the return on economic activity. Jobs, 11 to 1. Earnings. So these are, again, the salaries per acre, essentially, 172,000 versus 53,000. And then for local government, what's really important is tax revenue. So 13,000, almost 14,000 per acre versus the rest of the county is 3,000 per acre. So downtown as an economic engine, both for the private sector and for government, really, really important. We're going to dive a little bit deeper. This is the economic output. So this is the $3.5 billion. Fayette County's $37.4 billion. So our land mass of 1.4% accounts for 9% of the economic activity. Far exceeds our
And do you have the stat for the DLMD district of what percentage is government and church?
yeah. So
The
that gets,
nonprofit?
yeah. So when we get into the next slide or so, it talks about property tax revenue, and that in the bigger area of the DDA, 45% is tax exempt, and yet it still has a very high return. And then the DLMD is probably a little bit higher than that. By the way, for the entire county, 10% of the entire county's land mass is tax exempt. So think about that. So 10% versus 45%, but the return on investment is much greater. When we get to that, we'll do that. Okay. So what I think important here in this table are these numbers here. 1%, compare that to 1.4%. So 9% of the economic output, 14% of the jobs, 16% of the businesses. Office buildings, 19% of the office leasable square footage, 31% are right here in this area. Okay. So when we talk about tax revenue in general, we do 4.2 times more tax revenue generation than the rest of the county. And that is taking 554 million and our 34 million. So that's 6% of the total. And if we have 1.4% of land mass, 4.2 times. And then if you look over here, this is tax revenue per acre. And so we looked at this figure before. It was in the other slides. So the county average is 3,000 versus almost 14,000. But what we did is an analysis is if the city's budget was laid out over the entire county in a linear fashion, not taking into account what area might consume more than another, right? You know, for dealing with intensity. So let's say in some areas they have to pick up trash 4 times a day versus 2 times. We don't take that into account, but just a linear thing. The cost of government is almost 2,000 per acre. So the rest of the county provides an economic return of 1.5 versus almost 7 for downtown. It exceeds the cost to do business by a level of 7. And now we get into the property tax. So we talked about all taxes before. This is just property tax. And so I have a glare. It's in, oh, it's on, okay. I have to get on this side, sorry. So, property tax revenue, almost 9,000 versus almost 2,000. So the ratio difference is downtown provides 5 times more property tax per acre than the rest of the county.
Even with 45% being non.
Right, even with this.
Yeah.
Now, when you get into, this takes into account this 45%. So this table says property revenue per taxable acre, not per acre, but per taxable acre. So if you take just all the city's property in the county, all the property in the county that's taxable, what's that? That's $1,415 an acre versus 16,000, and DLMD is 30,000. So DLMD is really the core, and I think that's the best statistic to summarize what the importance of DLMD, this geography right here. Okay, and then we just talk about downtown is a cultural and tourism destination, and an important center, and that being that this is from Visit Lex. So in the county, they attract 3.3 million visitors to their ticketed and gated attractions. So that's where they can track it every year, year over year, they know. Of that, the cultural ticketed and gated attractions downtown attract 1.4%. That's 42% of all the ticketed and gated attractions that they track. And then our organization runs some events, and so just taking those events, not all the events in downtown, but our estimation of events, that we almost attract 1.6 million visitors to the downtown area. And then we have the greatest concentration of cultural and art organizations in the city. And then a hospitality center. So we account for 10% of the rooms, but 16% of the hotel room revenue. And that will likely increase when we get the Marriott online. Right?
Yep.
Yes, right. Oh, here's just a qualitative thing. I think we do this on a couple of these slides. Is that it's actually a favorite, and it's what travel writers write about. So, 11 reasons to drive to Lexington. This is Zaggett's. 8 out of the 11 are downtown items, destinations. Open Table, best restaurants, 3 out of the 5 that they list are downtown. And then the 6 largest craft breweries in Kentucky, 6 out of the 20 are in downtown. So it's a culinary destination. Okay. And then when we talk about young people, so 34 and under, really important. So the downtown worker is 24% of the downtown worker are below 34 years of age. And then 55% of the people who live downtown are below 34. And then, if you compare it to all of the residents or workers in the county, we account for 14% of the total in each category. So again, 1.4% of the land mass is attracting 14% of the young folks, and that's our future, and that is the talent, right? So downtown is a very, very important talent retention and recruitment vehicle to prevent that brain drain. Okay, that's on the impact. Any questions on impact? Okay, so this is best practices. You have pages of this, which is the really looking at the DLP and how we do business. But there's some important things with regard to the DLMD, and I'll kind of go through those as one summary slide or two. So we took a look at some various geographies and various size cities. So we didn't want to cluster them all in one place. So this is the list in order of population size of the city. And then these are the metrics that we took a look at. So history, role, and structure of the downtown organizations, engagement strategies, improvement districts, that's you guys, and foundations, we have the foundation, membership programs, volunteer programs, and just general best practices. So that's what's all in here. And so after you take a look at all this, what's the takeaway? The last page is that, and that is, where are the recommendations based upon Thomas P. Miller's and Associates, their research? Develop and implement a strategic plan. So you'll look in here that's what these successful organizations do. Guess what? That's what we're doing. Yay. Utilize membership software programs. So this ought to resonate for our organization. Woodford talks a lot about how we're doing with membership. So they recommend getting a software program to help us manage membership. Do a mobile-friendly website, and that's what we're doing, and it's a partnership with DLMB. Create a capital reserve so that we can navigate any hardships that might happen. Simplify our membership levels. I think we have 8 or 9 levels. We want to simplify those. Utilize boards and advisory boards for volunteers. That might sound scary, but some of you guys are already volunteering, so we appreciate that. That might be more in the form of committee structures as opposed to, hey, come out and let's have you all roll up your sleeves on a weekend. We have to kind of define what that might be. And then this is, from the last meeting, Kevin Atkins asked about, hey, we might have to RFP and stuff, so we had them go back and ask people. These guys have relationships with management districts. It's in those. They do a sole source contract, because who could you get to do this? It's not like you can, it's very singular expertise, and so that's how they do it, is sole source contract. And those are the recommendations. And if you'd like, we can email both of these reports to you so you have it. And then
Could you email that to all the property owners in the district too, just to give them feedback?
Or we should email. We
ones
should
you
mail.
have.
We should.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Ethan. We should snail mail. Do you think
Figure out
the best way?
the best way to do that.
Over time, I think it'd be good to get email addresses for property owners,
Yeah.
much cheaper than
Yes.
postal.
Yeah.
A lot of good stats for third district here for you. I mean, that
Very much.
tells a big story.
It's impressive stuff, really. Occasionally my colleagues will criticize the government for putting such emphasis on downtown. It's,
Right.
they can
This tells
see
you
it
why,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and if so, one of the reasons, in my experience, Indianapolis, Corpus Christi, or across any downtown, you hear about this is. A lot of times you get that. Your constituents say, why do you give everything downtown? Downtown's always getting stuff, blah, 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 blah. I say that in 2 ways. One, because sometimes downtown's getting all the, what I call the sexy projects, right? The big projects. So you always hear about downtown. But the other thing is, I think us as an organization and people who are trying to improve have to give decision makers something to hang their hat on when they get confronted with that. It's like, well, here's why. It's really important as an economic driver in our cultural and da-da-da, and now you have that. Because it's not, I don't think, fair to us to go, well, why are you doing this way if we don't help arm you with information? So, okay. I think that's it for presentations, and we can go to,
Really well
what's the
done.
next thing? Is it bike share?
Safety update.
Safety update. I'm going to turn to Ethan, and then
Kind of always know that this one was a
Yeah, but this gives you
validates it.
concrete, yes, it does.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the safety update. So we presented last meeting about the plan going forward to use our partnership with the coalition or the Office of Homeless Prevention to provide some second chance employment opportunities in parking lots, to also increase the safety ambassadors out on the street and find some ways to make people feel a little more comfortable that may have been not just panhandled but really aggressively panhandled or have people go a little bit beyond just asking for money, but so increasing that level of safety for people. David has already hired and trained 2 new on-street safety patrol ambassadors who are out there. I say right now, as in generally speaking, I don't know if their hours are literally right now, but hitting the lunchtime and the evening hours in some of the core areas. And then we are executing the contract with the Office of Homelessness, I think literally yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And so in the next month, by the next meeting, you'll see the rollout of that program with the new ambassadors at the parking lots. And then we'll continue throughout the year to work with them on lot improvements, lighting, other safety type issues that will happen as we go into the summer. That's kind of the quick, brief update on that.
Did we get any information back from the parking lot owners on what they are gonna contribute to this?
We're still talking to them
General.
about that. So they've reached back out and are really been focused on working out the agreements for us to have the second chance employment people on the lots. More or less I guess the paperwork side of it really, of the risk management and things. And then in the meantime, we're looking at the lighting options and property improvements that they can make. And then we'll come back to them once we can show some, over the next month or two, show some of the impact of having these ambassadors there. We can come back and say, hey, can you contribute to this program now that you see the results? Any other
Anybody
questions
else?
on that?
To get an ambassador, does the property owner have to pay something?
So in this case, we have 4 areas of surface lots that we're targeting on Short Street. And so it's a really concentrated space right now. How we evolve into the future is we have to expand into other areas that might have problems. Maybe the property owner paying in. It may be dependent on what grant funds we continue to get to fund it. And so we're fortunate in this pilot project to have the funding through this grant project, this grant funding.
Just to follow up on that and kind of place into both of your all's questions and comments, is this program didn't arise from the property owner saying we need some help. It's more of the merchants and those whose customers use those lots. So it's kind of coming to the lots and saying, here's a program, and it currently is funded fully from this grant. So, you know, the idea of the manning up might happen later if there's a proven success story. But it was more their group going to the properties and saying, hey, you know, what if we put somebody on here to make people feel safer?
Yeah, and this has really emerged from the business issues than it has from the lots themselves, from the business owner issues.
How long would the grant fund?
I believe this funds it for 9 months.
At a minimum throughout.
Yeah.
Is that depending on how many that we actually get? As far as, what's the number with that?
Yeah, if somehow we don't fill the schedule, you know, we have a 40-hour schedule of 4 to 5 people.
4 to 5.
And so it just depends. If somehow, it's kind of, if we're not able to fill the schedule, because what it is a pool of second chance employment people, because they can only work 20 hours a week. So we'll have a schedule, and then we have to schedule in a pool of them. And there'll probably be what I call people who will fall in and out depending on their personal situation. And so we have to probably cast a wide net in order to make it work. But if we have gaps in it, then that means it'll last longer.
Mr. Polson, he already has like 4 people waiting, he just waiting on everything.
We're waiting. The grant manager is picking up the contracts today, having it signed by mayor and council. So hopefully we'll start that process in the next week or so.
Are they gonna be block by block employees?
And they'll be managed by David.
Congratulations.
Nice.
So many hats. And then we may adjust the hours as we find out how the program's working, when it really needs to be targeted. I mean, it's a pretty broad amount of hours that we're looking at initially, and maybe those get fine-tuned as we go along, and that extends the program a little bit. But we'd rather start big and then.
And,
Anybody else?
Bike share. So, quick update on bike share. So, I don't know if you saw an announcement earlier this week, but UK. So, let me back up for a second. So, in January, we put together a working group across a broad section of stakeholders and collaborating organizations to figure out how to bring bike share here in its new model. And that new model is dockless. It's what a lot of cities are going to, or there's a lot of providers that want to come to cities. We thought it was really important that we select a single bike share provider that we could work with in partnership to launch a pilot program and figure out how to manage it better, because there are some challenges with dockless, mostly clutter. And so we want to make sure that we do this in a thoughtful way. So the steering committee selected Spin, and you might have seen earlier this week that UK announced that they executed a memorandum of understanding. And so the city now is doing that same process, and hopefully within the next week or so, they will enter into a memorandum of understanding. And so we have one provider for all the different geographies. So we'll be working then with the other universities and have bike share by a single provider, and the city then will work with them to, as we have those growing pains and these operational challenges, that we'll be able to adjust those and maybe even have ordinances that might have to be enacted in order to control this. So pilot program. It'll probably start with a couple hundred bikes. What they say, and actually each of the providers said, we interviewed 6, that generally speaking, you want 1 per 10,000, yeah. So 3,000 bikes for the whole community, stretching from county line to county line. So it'll be available hopefully for people to use in parks, in downtown, around hotels, and around commercial nodes, and around your neighborhood. Now, if you think about that, there could be some chaos, so that's that pilot process. By the way, there's a 30-day cancellation clause in this, so if it's totally not working, we can say, okay, let's reboot. So there's some safety in that, but we think we selected a good provider in order to test these waters. But it's going to be very exciting. Also, it's very affordable. I'll just go into that. It's 50 cents per half hour, so $1 per hour. You do it by app, so create an account on the app and you can ride. If you need to pay cash, they have systems for that. Like they'll probably have ways to do it at Alex Park or the transit centers and things like that. So they'll have kiosks where you can do that. And it's important that we link, in some ways, transit with bikes with parking. So it's a natural kind of way to do those things. And then for UK and students, they have discounted rates. As a matter of fact, I think UK is looking into something where they prepay so much for each student so that they aren't using their car anymore, they're using the bikes. And then they also have programs for folks of certain income levels to make it more affordable for them so that they can use it. So it's very inclusive, very broad. And then they talk about saturation is really important. So those 3,000 bikes, so the more bikes you see and the more bikes that you have interacting with traffic, traffic becomes more accustomed to bikes in the flow, and so that creates better safety for everyone. So,
I had a question.
Yeah.
Is the group that you're working with, is it someone that, will you have to return the bike to where you get it from, or is there going to be one closer? So many of them where it be somewhere where close they can leave it, as opposed to just dropping the bike anywhere, because like the pictures that I showed you, that might happen with that.
Yeah. So that's the pilot process, so they will have about, when they get fully operational, let's say to 3,000 bikes, they'll have 20 or more employees, and part of their job is to go around and take a look at where bikes are not where they're supposed to be. But they also have a carrot and stick way of trying to get people to act in a certain way, and that is the carrot is if you see a bike that's not parked well, they'll give you a free ride if you repark it so that it's in a better place. Or if you continually get rated, so you can rate the previous user bad, they can restrict your access to bikes because you're parking it in the wrong place. So hopefully people get, hopefully as people learn, and that this is in some ways not a privilege, but it's an amenity we want, that you be good users of it. That's what they want, is good users. Okay. I think property improvement grants.
So if you remember from the last meeting, we announced the launch of the property improvement grants, which is a matching grant program of up to $10,000 for small businesses to make improvements, capital improvements to their property. The goal of making the buildings more engaging with the street, more engaging with people, and to raise the quality of projects that are done, hopefully by providing some extra dollars in. Over that period, we talked with about 8 different property owners who were interested in projects and are working through those. And we had our first 2 applications submitted. Tanya Lawrence, Tom Harris, Terry, and myself reviewed the applications and made our first 2 awards. And those are to Bluegrass Tavern, who has a new owner and is looking at doing some facade improvements as well as some outdoor dining improvements. And then Centro, who's also looking at upgrading a lot of what they have. If you remember, we were focusing on businesses that were close together, kind of in that around the courthouse core at launch. The program's open to anywhere downtown, but we were focusing in the core just so we could show some bigger impact. Those 2 projects together are approximately $41,000 to $48,000 in projects, with about $17,000 in grant funds going to them. So we're leveraging beyond the 1-to-1 match in these, and I think. Whenever you see them completed, you'll see the definite upgrade in the areas. One thing we're currently working through is, because we're focusing in that core area, that is in the courthouse overlay, and so we're helping them coordinate with the city on the permitting and planning process, which is a little more intensive in that section to get things done. And they're helping us out by moving up some of the approval meetings and things like that to get the projects underway.
And when you say anywhere downtown, you mean anywhere within the district?
Correct. So, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to talk about how this is a great example of a good partnership. So if you remember in your budget that we had approved in January, $15,000 was allocated from the DLMD to get this project, this grant program started. The DLP allocated also, our board approved $15,000. So we have a pool of $30,000. That means, to a degree, we have different silos funding one program. So the $15,000 that you've allocated stays within this area, but we have another $15,000 that we can put anywhere in this area. So right now we've allocated $17,000. That means $15,000 in your core area, plus we've added $2,000 to it. The other thing that's really important is we've developed a contract. So the contract will be executed, and it'll have a scope of service and a timeline of when they have to complete it. But the most important thing, I think, is they're required to put a sign in their window for 6 months that says DLMD and DLP funded this project. So when we start talking about renewal and impact, people are going to see this, and that's really, really important. And so that's what, and again, it shows this partnership that we are hand in glove working together to make a difference for our downtown.
And to Terry's point, internally we're monitoring where those funds are spent.
I would just be
very closely.
careful just to say that you're going to focus on a certain area. That was a concern of property owners early on, that this block might get favoritism over that block. I think we just need to be, I don't disagree with what we're doing, but
Yeah. And
just
honestly,
be careful that, on that.
Yeah, we're actually having conversations with a number of people that are throughout downtown.
Right.
It's just that these are first to the table.
So what are those 2 businesses?
Centro and Bluegrass Tavern.
Where are they located?
Where are they?
They're right across from the
Fifth Third
courthouse.
Pavilion.
Cheapside Park.
But those bars are right there. That's good, that needs it.
Yeah. And so Bluegrass Tavern has a fairly old facade and awning that they're upgrading. And then Centro is increasing some lighting and doing some improvements to their building as well.
When will these projects commence?
As soon as we have our meeting with the city and the planning department, I'll have a better answer for that. We're moving it as fast as we can, but we do have to go through that overlay process, which is a separate board that approves all work in that area.
What ensures the work gets done if we give them money to do it?
It's a reimbursement for the project, so they'll submit their cost to us and invoice us after, so we don't pay up front.
Yeah, and we do we'll do an inspection, make sure it's completed the way it's supposed to, and we will only reimburse the allowable costs that are identified in the contract.
When you all look at the one-to-one grants, I would try to make sure that tangible improvements to the buildings are the focus on that one-to-one. Like, when you said that there are outdoor dining improvements, like that kind of scares me that it's like, okay, well, we spent 10 grand on new chairs.
No, that's a good question.
And that's a tangible item for that property owner versus a tangible item for the district.
When we looked at the grant application as a whole, we made sure that they were doing something beyond just chairs and tables. So like Centro is doing lighting improvements as well.
Right.
And most of Bluegrass Taverns is actually going towards, I think, $17,000 of their $19,000 project is going towards the building itself.
Good.
And so it is something we're considering in the review process.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
That's where time is our checks and balances.
Yeah, I was down there last week, and the awnings and all that, it's just this hodgepodge of things, which could be really beautiful with some kind of continuity or.
They're pretty old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen
Could be
those.
beautiful.
Any other questions on the grant?
Quick update on the branding process. So, again, another partnership that DLMD, DLP have put together. We've retained, after a RFP process and interview process, Lisa was at the table helping us. We selected Field Trip. We've had an initial meeting, and now we'll begin a process that will actually mirror the process that we're doing for our 3-year plan. So as I say, we won't go develop a brand for downtown that's like this. Hey, look, this is what we just did. What do you think? Right? We will engage people, hopefully another 400 people in that same process of give us a feel of what you think the brand, the experience that resonates with our customers and works for our businesses is for downtown. And then we'll develop an identity for the organization. And I've started to talk with Jim. We think that the identities need to be sister logos or sister brand identities. So we'll figure out how the DLMD and the DLP work together with probably a foundation might be the DLMD logo going from that. So we'll see, because again, for the near term, we have to be a little organizational forward. I think probably both organizations, right? Because we're, as I say, an infant organization, and you guys have a deadline coming up. So we got to make sure that we're being impactful and visible. So we'll work through that process. You guys will be at the table. We'll have a kickoff like what we did with the open house for the 3-year plan. We'll have a kickoff meeting. We'll have focus groups, and we'll also have a steering committee, of which there'll be a number of folks from this organization on the steering committee, but also from other collaborating organizations, so that they will help guide the process and some of the feedback. So the goal is to have that completed in August. So hopefully what we'll be doing is launching a 3-year plan and 1-year work plan in July. And one of those outcomes identified will be a new brand and website and social media tools, and that will happen in August. So quickly we'll start clicking off these things one after the other. And that's I think end of my updates.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Well, let's roll into item number 7, which is the spring cleanup. Who do we have up again?
Yeah, so very quickly, just an update on where we are with that. We're looking at launching basically an annual cleanup and fix-up of downtown. So it's beyond just picking up trash, but it's looking at things like, do curbs need painted? Are there damaged signs? Has somebody taken a baseball bat to Gary's parking meters? It can be anything like that. And finding just the things that are kind of sporadically across downtown that we need to fix up and make sure that downtown's maintained and in good order. And so we met with the city departments, Public Works, as well as the planning department, parks, and talked about clarified who was responsible for different roles. And we agreed to go through and do an evaluation of block by block, looking at every piece of curb that needs painted, every sign that's damaged, taking a picture, and compiling that into a report that we'll then take out and make it easier for the city crews who are able and willing to do a lot of these repairs, but just need some guidance on the location and where they need to do the work. And so this week we're coming back to them, I believe with one of the departments tomorrow, and bringing that report to them and kind of laying out the plan for them to come and get some of the repairs done. At the same time, looking at stuff that's beyond what the city would do and beyond what David's crews would do, and seeing if we need to build a scope for volunteers to come in and do something to make some improvements as well. And so we're clarifying all that scope, and you should start to see things roll out in the coming weeks of people making these improvements. And you'll start to see, when you see it all together, it'll make a big impact on downtown, but you'll start to see start to notice things a little more when all the paint is freshened up together, all the improvements made at once. And then we'll do this annually. First year's a little bit slower getting it going, but we'll probably try to launch it a little earlier next year.
Anybody? Questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Benefit of being at the end of the agenda.
Operations updates, Mr. David.
Just to add on to what Ethan was saying, the safety program has started. It started on April the 15th. We have 2 safety ambassadors. Right now, they're working from Wednesday through Sunday, from 12:30 to 9 o'clock, Wednesday to Saturday. On Sundays, they're here from 10 o'clock to 6:30. And that's just to start this. It's going to be flexible. I figure we might have to make adjustments as we go, but those are the hours just starting right now. Been getting some positive feedback so far. Everybody's been seeing them and they like having them out now. And like I said, we're just waiting on when the second chance begins and put the whole thing together. The other project I'm working on is that as I've been walking through, I've been seeing it's pretty much clean downtown. And we've been pretty much keeping it clean, but I was worried about that becoming the new norm, where people be saying that we're like, hey, we don't really need them because it's clean downtown. So I've started, when the team takes out the barrels to clean up and everything, I've started putting statistics on the side of the barrels, then let them know how things are being cleaned up, who's taking care of it, just so people know, and in case they're wondering how it stays so clean down here. So that's something that I've been working on. And I've also had Officer Lawrence, he's been coming in, also working with the safety team. So the training has been ongoing, but we're getting better as we go.
Dave, I've seen ambassadors on bikes now.
Yes.
How many do we have on bikes?
It's only two of them.
I think it makes a big difference. It's good to see them downtown.
I'm hoping that it'll expand as we go, where we can have them throughout the whole day as opposed to just part of the day. So hopefully it will.
Okay. Anything else for David?
Any ideas about those tree wells? You're not going to let that drop?
Well, I've been waiting, I guess it was so much spending going on between all the different projects going on. I'm kind of waiting until they say, well, David, go ahead, let's work on this. So
It just made a big improvement.
I think,
You know, David's just, I live downtown and they're out and about, I mean, wherever you go.
you might want to get
It's
into
comforting
it.
too, you know, if you're walking around.
You might want to get into his ear and kind of push it. Yeah, give him a little shove.
I'll keep pushing.
As soon as we can, as soon as they allocate the money, I'm ready to take care of it. But a lot of the areas, like a lot of the tree wells are on Vine Street, for instance. We didn't want to do any over there because
do anything
the
there.
projects that's about to go on. The other spot was, I guess, where we can work, the next spot that we can do is around the square. Where the visitor center is moving, but along there, it's kind of uneven on that side and on the Short Street side, so that would be a good area when we do need to do them again.
Well, you don't want to start anything on Main and Eastern and Short and Midland, because that's getting ready to start. Oh, boy.
Anything else for David?
Doing a great job.
Who does special events? Thank you.
So I handed out the Central Bank Thursday Night Live schedule. We are well underway with that. Remember, there are no full street closures at any time during that event. So moving on, the only event that we have between now and when we meet again is Bike Lexington, the family fun ride on Saturday, June 2nd. It's at the Robert F. Stevens Courthouse Plaza. We'll do programming from 8 a.m. until about noon. And we will have full street closures, short street between Upper and Martin Luther King, which on a Saturday morning is just a continuation of what the farmers market is doing, street closure wise, and then Limestone between Main Street and 2nd. The Family Fun Ride will take off at 10 a.m. It is a rolling street closure with police, so what that means, I'm sure you know, is just there's a lead car and a tail car, and it'll go through the route. The route is about 7 miles this year. It just kind of takes a pretty broad pass around downtown, north on Limestone, and then around Transy, UK, back down Main Street. So just kind of a great big loop. Again, not a full closure at any time, so of the route. And we'll start this closures about 7 a.m. We should be finished by 1 or so on that event. And then when we meet again, I will have street closures for the 4th of July Festival. And Pride also takes place in June, the Pride event. So if you guys have any questions about events in the meantime, by all means, just give me a shout.
Is there anything that the city does for Memorial Day weekend?
The city doesn't do anything, and the DLP doesn't either, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Who's talking about parking?
I'll just give a quick little update. We did, I spoke to you all last meeting about, we had hired consultants to do an operational audit and best practices audit, and we just got a draft report from them yesterday, sent it out to our board. But one of the things that I want to quickly touch on that they observed here, and I think it plays into where we have parking that came up a few times in the meetings, and we really need to work, and we'll work together on the side to break that down. What do you mean when parking is, so is it you can't find it, we think is a big piece of it. So wayfinding, which is also another piece that we talk about as a group, is really important. And then in our Boise visit with Commerce Lex, I noticed that we do, really our parking operations are very similar in terms of equipment and technology, pay by phone at the meters. There's a lot of things that actually had the same kind of meters we had in the downtown, same kind of garage equipment. And they do the space count signs like we do on our garages, but they have more signs and larger signs. And I think that something on our facilities, and there's not all of our sidewalks have room, but the kind of a kiosk style sign that also has the space count near an entrance on the sidewalk, which also could provide a space for maybe event advertisements or Thursday Night Live, just things, other downtown announcements possibly. So there's not a lot of space on our sidewalks for things, but they had those, and I thought they were pretty cool. But in other cities, the mast arms are often used for, parking up, the arrow one more block, or make a left here if you're looking for parking. So maybe to help folks that are trying to navigate the one-way streets to find parking, additional signage is something that we'll try to budget for and start talking about within our group. But yeah, wayfinding's kind of on our radar right now.
Questions on parking? Can't get enough parking, Gary. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be here afterwards.
Yeah. Under other business, we have 2 guests here today. These are professors from Transylvania, friends of mine for a number of years. Carmina and Kirk do great work over there and part of that community, and they have a really cool project that you may have seen an article in the paper about not too long ago. And so they've requested some time in front of us to kind of inform us of what they're doing, and I think ultimately they'll probably be doing an application of some sort. But I want to get a little teaser today. So guys, the floor is yours. Thank you.
And we brought Nathan Sunrock with us from LexArts. So thank you for having us this morning. We are hoping that actually most of you have already encountered this artwork we're going to tell you about. But we will spend just a few minutes showing you images and talking about it, so that whether you've seen it before or heard about it or not, you'll get a sense of the scope of it and just how many people in our community and outside of Lexington we've already engaged with. So the artwork is called Unlearn Fear and Hate, and we launched it with grants from LexArts in the summer of 2016. And it manifests itself primarily in 2 ways: as sculptures, which are shaped like a halo, so halo-shaped sculptures, and 60-foot long stencils. And the stencils spell the words Unlearn Fear and Hate. So the words themselves come from a poem we commissioned Afro-Latvian poet Frank X. Walker to write for a different artwork, but it's important to say that we didn't come up with these words, they're part of a poem. And the poem is in English. So initially when we created the sculpture with the words honor and fear and hate, they're in English. And you can see here a collection of images because what we do is we invite people to take a selfie or be photographed in front of the sculpture. And our idea is that together all of these images become equivalent to a visual petition of sorts. So you're not signing anything, but if you're photographed in front of these words that say honor and fear and hate, hopefully what that means, or if I get photographed, what that means is that I think it's important to consider ways in which I might be fearful or even hateful, and we don't like talking about that, but fear leads to hatefulness. So what are ways in which I might be fearful or hateful, and what can I do to become less so? Or something that not many of us think about, what are ways in which we might cause fear in others, and how can I change maybe my behavior so that other people aren't afraid of who I am? Or the communities that I'm part of, do they live with fear? And again, is there anything I can do to make my community less fearful? So initially we created the sculpture with the words in English, and then we created versions with the words in Spanish and in Arabic as well. And we'll show you. This is from Festival Latino, and this is in Arabic. And something we didn't anticipate, because so many people wanted to engage with this artwork, is that people asked us if they could borrow one of the sculptures. So this one is in a local mosque. So they ended up traveling to different kinds of faith communities, including a mosque, different local schools. This next image is this is Habitats Restore on Southland. And local schools, this is Kappa, then the outside of Dunbar High School. We could have brought a lot of images, but STEAM Academy, Lafayette High School, the Lyric Theater all had day-long festivals on the theme of honor and fear and hate, drawing in a lot of different kinds of visual artists and performers as well.
And all the halo forms that we've shown so far were temporary, though one of them is made in stainless steel. These two on the side of All Orange Dunbar are MDF, which is a material that's basically sawdust glued together. So it's not meant to last a really long time. What's meant to last even a shorter period of time are the large activations that we've done on the streets of the city. And this is a 60-foot-long stencil. This is the first one that we painted in Lexington, and we painted it with the incoming class of students at Transylvania. So we worked with about 100 students over the course of about 2 hours to paint this in the street. And we got permission from the city to do this in the streets, provided that we use temporary chalk marking paint. So it wears off in a period of a month or two, or if you drive a street sweeper over it on purpose or accidentally, it wears off a whole lot more swiftly. The second time we did this was actually for Festival Latino, and we did it there because we approached the directors of Festival Latino and asked if they would be interested, and they were very interested in the sentiment and the artwork, but they were wise enough to say that if you put this on the street during our festival, no one will ever see it, because there are way too many people on the street. So it actually lasted a little bit longer than the festival on the side of the building here. This is another activation we did with the parishioners at First Presbyterian. And this was an interesting one because we worked with a smaller number of people to make this one, probably about, I'd say 25 people. On the first day when the temperature dropped below freezing, we learned also that anything that comes out of a spray can doesn't dry if it's below freezing. And some very industrious parishioners thought they would dry it all with hair dryers and dry. But 60 feet is a lot of paint. And thankfully the temperature just rose quickly enough that it did dry. This is on the sidewalk on the University of Kentucky's campus to kind of kick off Islam Awareness Week and Social Justice Week. I don't know how many of you know this already, but you might understand that there's a ban against any chalk on the sidewalks at the University of Kentucky because of what people might write, and so there are people whose job is to take it off. So we went through the process of kind of applying and getting this to be approved to be left there. And then the first time that we've done 4 different languages, or the only time we've done 4 different languages on the same street, this is on Bryan Avenue, I forgetting the name, and it's Arabic, Hebrew, Spanish, and English. We have, and we'll just show a few of these, but this has expanded well beyond Lexington. This is the most recent time we've painted this stencil. This is at McGavick High School in Nashville, Tennessee, which is the largest high school in Nashville. And we went down there probably about a month and a half ago to paint it. And a month or so before that, we were in Cape Town, South Africa. And this is the District 6, St. Mark's Cathedral in District 6, which is an area in Cape Town where, due to, at the time of apartheid, there was a forcible relocation. This church is one of only 2 buildings that remain in this part of Cape Town from before that happened. So we worked with people to kind of create the stencil there as well. And you can see on the bottom there, it says Unlearn Fear and Hate. And if you look really closely, you'll see from where you're sitting, it's just some squiggles, but it says Frank X. Walker. And so it's interesting because of the number of times that we have seen it show up on social media, people in Cape Town that we didn't meet that are trying to figure out where the source of this is. This is another activation that was funded by a number of different organizations, by LexArts, Bluegrass Community Foundation, and Urban County Government. And it was an idea to make a single image from the halo that was on 21C larger and displayed like a banner. This is across the street from 3rd Street Coffee, or was. It's not there currently. If you drove there this morning for your coffee and you didn't see it, it's because it's not there right now. And another kind of temporary activation that was outside of Lexington, there's an art festival in Grand Rapids every year. And we just saw the numbers of Grand Rapids population. We were surprised to see that it was smaller because it seems larger when we were there. But partially because this is the world's largest annual outdoor art festival. And so there are people from many different countries there. And what we did was we created a plaza that featured this halo form in the 25 most common languages in Grand Rapids. So in that situation, instead of people standing and having their pictures made, they took pictures of their feet as they passed through the festival. And what we are kind of here to talk about and propose funding for, or request funding for, is a legacy piece. So the halos that you've seen were temporary and they were smaller. If you know this building, it's called the Lexington Building. You can see on the right-hand side is the old courthouse. This is significantly larger. The halos that we've had were 4 feet in diameter. This one is 20 feet in diameter. And it's scaled such that people can still take those same pictures, but they can take them from the ground. And this is a project that is part of a National Endowment for the Arts grant that LexArts received. And we've done some other kind of activations from that, but this is the final legacy piece of that work.
And in terms of budget, we're looking at, this is proposed in stainless steel, so it would be long lasting. This is a permanent piece. We do have site permission for this artwork. And sorry, I'm Nathan Zamora, Community Arts Director with LexArts. I've done a lot of public art with the city and different things. I've been with LexArts for 10 years. But this piece, we did partner with, LexArts partnered with Kurt Kamena to request funding from the federal government, and which we were fortunate enough to receive a grant for. Total budget, we're looking at a minimum of $50,000. And that includes there's going to be in kind on top of that, and honestly, we'd like to see more support from the community to really pay the people that are actually creating this, and artists and things involved. So LexArts is fully committed to making sure that this fund gets raised, and I'll say that just to make sure that you know that there is literally a fundraising staff behind this project. Your support would be instrumental in helping us achieve that goal. But this particular project, it will create a visual impact downtown. I think that this would add into our landscape of public art downtown and be a destination. We're starting to get people coming to Lexington to see the murals and all of these things. This is a sculpture that would be, would function in a way that would draw people to it. It also taps into the social the power of public art to create social change. And you've heard the stories and the experiences that Kurt Cremena have helped activate in this community. The community dialogue is super important. So this project, I think, is one of the most important public artworks that we have sought out yet, and we are fully behind it to make sure that it happens. Our LexArts is behind it. We've in a way that, when we put our name on a project, we're going to see it through. We just announced last week that we had multiple, actually 2 NEA grants that are coming, that are $100,000 for Town Branch Park and $25,000 for Southland, the streetscapes that we're going to be doing there. So I just say that our name is on the line for this, and Lexington is making a mark nationally, and this project has made like a serious. It's drawing attention. So this is an incredible project we're super excited to be part of, and we appreciate your support if you choose to be behind it.
Question. I got a comment. First comment, the Vice Mayor had to leave, and the Vice Mayor wanted people to know that he's spoken to folks about this, and he's very supportive of it, as I am. But I was wondering, I see a lot of the small stencils around town, like the 3rd Street stuff, other businesses, even homes. By the way, every time I see them, it makes me smile. But are they authorized by you, or
Yeah.
people just taking off with that? Or?
No, they are. So that initially came as a result of us. The people that we work with to make the really large stencil gave us a sample, small stencil. And then we realized that people would want to use it to put on their sidewalks. That took off into kind of a library loaning system. So we made those available through 3rd Street Coffee, where people could contact us and then they could collect the stencils. So at one point we had over 100 of those stencils circulating.
Well, I've seen a lot of them. Great.
Yeah.
My other question is that going to be lit?
It will. It's not internally lit, but it's going to be lit, we believe, from the lower roof. We'll have a light that shines up on it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
That was my question too, Jay, because you're gonna light up at night. You know more about the light, isn't it? Beverly knows. Anybody else have any questions?
Is there a certain area on the ground level that people will need to stand to get? How will that look? Where would it be located at?
It's probably going to be, well, right about in here. I would say halfway through those parking spaces, or in the sidewalk on the side. What we found, even from the 4-foot one, is that where you stand can be adjusted a lot by where the camera is located. So if you are taking a picture with your own arm, that forces you to stand at a certain distance. But if someone else is taking the picture, then the distance that they're from you can really change that a lot. So there will be a number of places that it works.
And also, people don't follow directions very well. When it was on the side of the 21C, it was so scientific. We measured, and then we made, using temporary paint, we made a mark on the sidewalk indicating where you should stand to take your picture. Most people didn't. Whether they saw it or not, they just did their own thing, which is fine. Especially when it's about pictures, you can't tell people how to take their picture. But people figure it out. Once they realize that that's an opportunity for a selfie or a picture, they figure it out.
Yeah, when it was on our building, people really enjoyed it, and people took pictures and they talked about it, and it was a great extension for 21C to have that. We appreciated that greatly.
And we were very thankful for the support.
Have you all taken this to the courthouse overlay board?
We have been in communication with Betty Kerr, and we're working through the historic preservation process. This is a privately owned building, but it does reside in the courthouse overlay, so it will be presented to them, and we're in conversations.
I've seen those stumbling blocks pop up late in the projects before.
Anyone else? Well, we love the project. There is a process I was telling you about. We'll make sure you get the applications to submit to us. I think everybody sounds like it was enthusiastically received today, but we appreciate your interest, and if you can go through that process with us, hopefully we can see what we can do to assist. Thank you all very much for your time. Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry. Go right ahead, please. Yes.
Could I give an update on something you have already sponsored?
Yes.
The book bench project I'm happy to tell you all about is the benches were turned in this Saturday. We were able to corral 37 artists and get them all to deliver on the same day, which is nothing short of a miracle. We now are in the process of having the benches clear coated, so they will have a UV finish to them that will make them weatherproof forever and ever. We have the preview opening party coming up on the 1st of June at Gratz Park. All the benches will be displayed there that evening for the first time. They'll be in Gratz Park for the whole weekend, so anybody, any member of the public will be able to go there and see them all together over that weekend before they go out across the town for the next 6 months for the public exhibition period. The preview party is $75 a person. As our Opus sponsors, you do get several free invitations to that. I'm not sure who will have those bestowed upon them, but I wanted everyone to see the invitation and your logo on the back, and to have the opportunity to come if you don't get a free ticket. So, Sharon, Tom.
We like Legos.
Okay. And if you just pass them around. So again, thank you for your support, your sponsorship. These benches will knock your socks off. They are absolutely phenomenal, and I think you'll be very proud to be an Opus sponsor of this public art project. So again, thank you from myself, Arts Connect, Lex Arts, and the Carnegie Center.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Kate.
Steve, I think you have something.
Yes, I just want to throw something out that I think we need to start thinking about, that I think is a need. Many of you remember years ago when the state gave the city money to build a performing arts center, and it didn't kind of come to fruition, so we built that little black box theater, which is a much smaller venue. Then I think they sued us for the money and all that kind of stuff. But there's a real need for a performing arts center in this community. At a seat range of around 900 to 1,000 people. And the idea wasn't mine, but I think it's something we want to look at, is how we can take an existing building and make it more of a multi-purpose facility. And what I'm suggesting is that we take a look at the Kentucky Theater, in which we have already done a renovation on. You know, that was Isabella Yates chaired that, did a nice job. But actually looking, given the fact we've got the town branch and all the things that are happening there, look at going out at the back end of the Kentucky Theater and creating an orchestra shell that's connected to the back end of that theater. It has the staging capacity. You'd have to do some acoustical work, but it could be the permanent home for the Lexington Philharmonic, the Central Kentucky Youth Orchestra, who struggle for venues. You know, they're having to go to Singletary Center, which is almost 2,000, which is really too big. They can never fill that up. And you end up doing one performance as doing a smaller venue that you can do performances 1 or 2 days or 3 days. But it is a perfect size. It's already been renovated. It is structurally set up so the hearing impaired can hear in there. It would be a nice multi-purpose building at that point. You'd still have your movies that you go to, but you would have a venue that would allow for performances that are too big for the opera house, or acoustically is not suited, but they're smaller and they would not go into Rupp Arena. So it would give you an opportunity to use that beautiful facility significantly more during the course of the year and give us a permanent performing arts center, so to speak, in addition to having the theater. But I think that's something we need to kind of look at, because if you look at CKO, the Youth Orchestra and the Lexington Philharmonic, they do 6 big concerts at Singletary Center, okay? Which means the 6 concerts or 4 rehearsals, that's 24 different days that it's used in the course of the year, just on them alone. And they struggle because they get second and third choice on the day. So we don't even have our schedule because we can't find the space to perform. So Jake, this is something I think maybe the city ought to, in conjunction with the DLP and maybe Lex Arts, to look at what is the possibility. I think this could be a neat thing.
Interesting idea. Are we talking about the main theater?
Yep, the main theater, just go off the back of it, because it's just, you know, space back there.
Yeah.
And create an orchestra shell out of it.
Now, there's a plan for what they're calling Karst Park, but I'm not sure that would conflict with that.
Yeah. But anyway, I just throw that out as an idea.
So, and what kind of seating, how
How many seats are you
It's
thinking
6,000
about?
people, you know, it doesn't have a balcony in there.
Yeah.
You know, because it was built during the Jim Crow days, and at that time you had to let African-American people sit in the balcony. They didn't want that, so that's why they didn't have a balcony. And you wouldn't need to have a balcony, but it has the space and structure that would be needed for orchestral-type music and other performances. And creating that shell is something that you would need as well. And you don't have that at the Opera House. And at the Opera House, you're limited to the number of musicians that you can have on the stage because it's a smaller stage as well.
So Water Street's right behind that. I mean, you're talking about going out the back of the Becky Theater where the mural is now, Lincoln, and right back there.
Yeah, I mean, just straight back from
How
where the
far
theater
how
is.
far back are you kind of thinking?
Oh, that's way beyond my pay grade. But I think it's something to maybe look at.
There's been talk for years about, you know, the need, you know, like, people that under Maine, if you're acquainted with them, they're always talking about need for other venues, when, you know, there's a certain range that we just don't hit.
Yeah.
And I know Bluegrass Youth Orchestra has
Yep.
a lot of problems. I have a friend who works for them.
Yeah, just brings more people downtown.
Right.
Yeah.
If I could add on, just to reiterate the need for this, you know, in somewhere here in the community, Lex Arts, you know, we fund a lot of the arts organizations in town, and we have heard year after year after year that one of the biggest challenges facing the performing arts in Lexington is the lack of venues of a particular size. And Singletary Center, you know, is where they go now, but it's hard. Like you said, it's hard to book. And the performing arts groups are not the priority in that space. Yeah. So it's like that's one of the big things is if we're going to have a philharmonic, which we need one, and we're going to have youth orchestra, which is an amazing opportunity for that attracts our our workers and things, and have their kids raised here. You know, this is a true need that we see year after year, the need for a space like this.
All right. Thank you very much. One last order of business. I apologize. This is probably the longest meeting we've had since we started, but there was a lot of material we had to go through, and we're glad we did. We are unfortunately saying goodbye to a dear friend here who's been a great colleague, a great contributor to this board. Andrew Carter has been promoted up the food chain, so to speak. He's moving to Louisville. He'll still be around, though, hopefully. I know, we're going to miss him, but yeah, but we want to thank you for all your efforts, and you've been a great contributor. We got a little something for you to take with you.
Hey, Andrew, we're all looking forward to getting one of those.
You just got to quit. Move out of this.
Thank you all so much. It's been a true honor, and it's great to meet each and every one of you and work with you all in the city. And I'm still going to be connected to Lexington, and I just look forward to future success and working with you all. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
I think we're adjourned. Thank you all so much for staying.
It's the first plaque to come out of here.